Have you ever had those rough days as a pharmacist and felt like quitting? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the 7 top books for pharmacists like myself who want to quit. You're probably stumbling upon this video because you're unhappy with your pharmacy career. Maybe you feel frustrated. Maybe you've thought about escaping the retail prison. Or maybe you thought about starting a new business like that juice bar that you always wanted to dream about back in undergrad. Wait, no? Maybe it was just me and Angelo. I've been there before, and I know the anxiety of not feeling happy with your day-to-day, feeling trapped with no sense of escape, and the burden of student loan debt. If you feel this way, you're not alone. Burnout is actually common among pharmacists. A 2017 survey by Jones and colleagues found out that 61.2% of pharmacists experience burnout, primarily driven by emotional exhaustion. Whether you're here because you want a new pharmacy career change, if you're realizing that pharmacy wasn't what you expected, or you're just feeling burnt out with your career, this video is for you. To be honest, I shot this video because these are kind of the books that I wish I kind of read before quitting pharmacy. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 7 different books that really helped me kind of feel better about my life and gave me a sense of direction of what I should do. Each of these books have a specific purpose and aim to open up different options. So whether you're looking to start a new business or a new job, all these books will help in some sort of way. So let's kind of dive into it. Book number 1, Why Your Prescription Takes So Damn Long to Fill. So with all the craziness that happens in the pharmacy, do you ever ask yourself, why did I even enter this profession? We all know it's like when we have those days at the pharmacy, when we feel stressed, we see the drama. And if you're anything like me, I would actually bring it home and it would affect my relationships. And not gonna lie, it's probably still the #1 reason why I'm single at 33. The only people that truly understood what I was going through were my friends who were pharmacists and my colleagues. But if you hung out around pharmacists and you hang out with them too much, it can lead to a life of excessive drinking, negative spiral, and complaining. And while it was really fun at times to just like complain with all your friends, it really doesn't help us to be happier in the long run. And that's why I actually found this book. This is the book that I recommend because it gives us an outlet to laugh about our profession, to start having fun, and just put us in a better mindset. What I loved about this book were all the inside jokes that we had in the pharmacy world. You know, those Friday nights where people would rush to pharmacy, try and pick up their Viagra, or how the phones never stop ringing in the pharmacy. And as funny as these stories are, there are some really heart-touching stories in this book too that really reminded me of why I entered this profession. A good laugh is not only important for making us feel good, but if you watch my channel, you probably know the importance of the neuroscience and how laughter not only helps us feel good, but also helps us turn off our survival brain, our reactiveness, and turns on our executive state, which is responsible for creativity, empathy. With that being said, while a good laugh is important, that's probably not going to help you kind of transition careers. Which leads me to my second book recommendation, How to Escape Retail Pharmacy Hell. If you've seen my older videos, you probably heard me say something like this: start a business, quit pharmacy. You know what? Business is really hard. I think that was my late 20s, my inexperienced self back in the day. Not everybody can start a business. Not everybody should start a business. And not everybody wants to start a business. A lot of times we just want to feel a bit better with our careers and maybe find a bit of change or just find out what we want in general. So what I love about this book is that Ian reminds us of all the options that we have with our pharmacy career. Sure, could you start a new business? Could you do another job altogether? Yeah, you possibly could. But in order to do that, you have to learn a whole new skills that you didn't learn in pharmacy school, apply to a new business model, service, or product. Basically, it's like going through pharmacy school all over again, except with exams. And if you fail, well, you end up in tons of debt. And we all know that's not fun. So instead, it's probably easier just to find a job that you really like. And that's where this book comes into play. One of my favorite chapters is where he talks about all the different careers in pharmacy. He doesn't only talk about these different careers, but he also talks about how to optimize your resume and ace the interview too. Maybe you read this book and you're asking, how do I find or choose the right choice? Sometimes we get overwhelmed and we get over analysis paralysis. We think about our student debt, which leads me into this third recommendation. I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Mindsight. When you come out of pharmacy school, the truth is most students end up in a lot of debt. The hard part is no one teaches you how to get out of it, how to manage it, or even how to invest. And yes, you should be investing. I don't think I would have ever left pharmacy if I didn't set up myself financially right from the get-go. Literally at the time of graduation, I was living with roommates. I was sleeping on this Japanese futon just to stack up a ton of cash and invest every single dollar into my investments every single month, which opened up a lot of opportunities for me compared to my friends. And trust me, I love them, but a lot of them bought homes, luxury cars, and even started their families at a very young age. Not to say that these were bad decisions, they're absolutely not. These things are actually really important for adulting, but especially if you're on the younger side and you're coming straight out of pharmacy, making these big decisions upfront can limit our options. So if you're not in a career that you love and you commit yourself to these early decisions, it limits our options in the future. I realized that I spend 40 plus hours working every single week. So why not find work that I truly loved? Why not optimize that? But what I found truly helpful about this book for pharmacists is that once you have clarity about your finances, about how much you need to make a month to pay off your expenses, it opens up a world of what options you can do and what you can't do. And you can start optimizing a career that makes you actually happy with what you're doing. My favorite personal finance book in investing is I Will Teach You to Be Rich. He talks about how to invest, how to pay off college, how to pay off your wedding. And he also talks about the simplest way and your different options for investing. And he also goes over the basics of credit cards, saving accounts, checking accounts, and everything else that you need to know to set yourself up financially. At this point, you have a potential career that you're interested in. You got your money situation fixed, and you even got a good laugh out of pharmacy. But the real question is when will it feel right to bite the bullet and make a change? And that leads me to my next book recommendation, Necessary Endings by Henry Cloud. If we think about endings, a lot of time they're filled with negative emotions. I mean, is there anybody that really likes breakups, divorces, funerals, or actually getting fired? This book by Dr. Cloud actually helps us navigate the world of uncomfortable endings and helps us kind of reframe and how to better execute endings for personal growth and professional growth like pharmacy. You know, a lot of time when it comes to pharmacy, whether you want to start a new business or transition into a new job or career that you've never done, it comes with a lot of fear naturally. Some of these thoughts come into mind. What happens if I fail at this job? The truth is, finding a new opportunity is the first battle, but it's a total new battle to kind of actually seize the opportunity and step into it. So if you're uncomfortable with endings like I am, the more difficult it is to actually have clarity about what needs to be done. Dr. Cloud reminds me that endings are actually a good thing and embracing them is really important. Now, the biggest thing for this book for pharmacists is that our current career and environment in community pharmacy isn't sustainable. It really has not changed, and actually it's gotten a lot worse. What I realized was that when I actually get that clarity that doing more, working harder isn't going to bring a different result, it makes it a lot easier to actually take action and get that reality check that I always need. Even to this day, this book has really helped me come to terms both emotionally and logically that my old career and the identity of a pharmacist and only being a pharmacist needs to die, and I need to make the room for the next stage of my life. This book also has some great tips on how to strategically end things that no longer serve us. And it reminds us when it's time to have the courage to take the next step. But what happens when you have your game plan in place, like we talked about before? What do you do when you're in between transitions and you're not ready to leave your career yet? That leads me to my next book, Effortless by Greg McKeown. As I was reading this book, I was thinking about how much effort it actually requires us to do in the world of pharmacy. And I couldn't help it, but it reminded me of those old pharmacy days where we would learn things about minimal effective concentration or minimal effective dose. How can we get the right amount of medication or dose to medication just right to get our desired effect without having all those adverse side effects? But it never occurred to me, how can we apply this to our work life? Right in the introduction, it talks about not everything has to be so hard. How do we make things easier, not more difficult? Maybe it's just being an overachiever, or maybe it's just being in an Asian household where we're taught to work harder. I spent so much time just hustling and grinding, and that was pretty much my life, just to be on top. And when we hit this point of overwhelm and exhaustion, oftentimes we tell ourselves it's normal to feel frustrated and annoyed, and we compensate by working harder or longer hours. And it doesn't help that our culture, our corporate culture, glorifies burnout as a measurement of success and self-worth in the industry, putting ourselves out there every single day and working ourselves to exhaustion to serve our patients, to be more profitable, and to be at the top. If we're not exhausted, we must not be doing enough great things. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of scares me to think that I used to think this way back when I used to work corporate. The biggest thing I learned from this book is realizing that and coming to terms that burning out is not a badge of honor. The cycle of exhaustion or overwhelm is a battle that we can never win. And chances are, if you're a pharmacist, you know this feeling and you're probably experiencing it right now, where we hit the cycle of diminishing returns. This book, Effortless, really helped me kind of rewire some of those bad habits about work and relationship to work, and helped me get over the fact that I don't need to work harder if I want to live a happier, more productive life, and richer life too. It changed my relationship to work, where I ask myself now is, what's the end goal? What am I trying to accomplish, instead of just going on default autopilot, working my ass off and burning out? Is this to say that I'm a lazy piece of shit now? Absolutely not. The biggest difference these days is that I'm intentional about it. It's because I want to get lost in the work. Does that mean we suddenly have a happier life now? Absolutely not. Reducing work and our relationship to work is the first step. The second step to truly finding happiness, that leads me to my next book, Mindsight. Have you ever heard people saying that generic self-care routines like be grateful for what you have, write your gratitude list, take a break, and maybe eat lunch at the pharmacy? If you've been a pharmacist, then you probably know that some of these things are almost impossible in the pharmacy setting. Our environment doesn't let us, our culture doesn't let us. And as pharmacists and people of healthcare, a lot of us probably value evidence-based medicine and treatments. Listening to my favorite podcaster like Andrew Huberman is great. It can be helpful to have a basic primer into the neuroscience about what triggers our survival state versus executive state. This is also known as those moments of gratitude and happiness versus those FML moments in the pharmacy where we have the phones ringing off the hook, every prescription is requiring a PA, 6 patients are waiting for their immunizations, and a patient who is complaining about not being able to find the milk. Ugh, PTSD. If you're anything like me, I would actually shut down in these moments and react a lot more. I would lose my greatest power of empathy and felt like I couldn't think on my toes anymore. Sometimes I would take my inability or failure on my self-worth, thinking that I couldn't keep up with the demands of the pharmacy since I wasn't good enough. And when we can realize what exactly triggers our survival mechanisms, we can start understanding the meaning that we put behind these moments in the pharmacy. We can start activating our prefrontal cortex and really start critically thinking through situations and come up with better creative solutions. And even in those moments, if you can't come up with a solution, it's okay. We stop attaching our self-worth to those meanings. So I reached out to my good friend, Dr. Eugene Choi, who's also a pharmacist and escaped the pharmacy hell. And you might have seen him in my Behind at 30 video too. I asked him, hey, what is a good book for helping pharmacists dive into neuroscience? He recommended this book, Mindsight by Dr. Daniel Siegel. Now that we know how the neuroscience works, how do we actually implement this into our every single day life? Which brings me to my last book, Storyworthy. Believe it or not, I got to recently meet Matthew Dix, and he talks about homework for life. And I try to document my daily stories and look for a story every single day. If there's one thing I wish I did back in my pharmacy days, it would be to document more of these stories, because it's not like I'm going to go back to pharmacy and document those times. It reminds me of the days where I used to go on Asian Avenue or Zanga. And the reason why I wish I did this sooner was take account of those story-worthy moments. What I realized is that sometimes if you're asked, what do you want out of life? It can be a pretty daunting question. But by writing stories, it helps me process and take the time to figure out what I really want in life, what really makes me happy, what are those moments that I cherish so much. Homework for Life has not only allowed me to process emotional charged moments from my day-to-day, but it's also been helping me become a lot more grateful as a person. Feels like almost like a fun meditation, but the number one thing I really appreciate about this is that I like looking back at my stories and I just take appreciation of how far I've come since a certain time. I just appreciate all the hard work that I've been kind of doing during that time. This is the most important thing you can do as a pharmacist because it'll help you feel a lot happier. And the best part is if your friends or maybe younger pharmacy students ever ask you, how did you leave pharmacy or how did you do XYZ? You can actually share these stories for the future generations. And let's say if you don't have enough time to write down a story, don't worry. Matthew Dix, the author of this book, recommends that you just write down a few words just to kind of jog the memory there. It's not this long, daunting essay, but it's actually really fun. I reflect on everything from my first pet to my first kiss to my worst kiss to the worst pet I ever had. These are some of the books that really changed my life. Not only have they changed my common beliefs about work and helped me escape the soul-sucking corporate pharmacy, but it's also helped me feel a lot happier by tapping into my executive state versus reacting to my survival state. If you're feeling overwhelmed with the thought that, how can I get out of pharmacy? How can I leave this career that makes me unhappy? It's completely normal. If you feel this way, you'll probably like my video about feeling behind that 30. I'm Kevin. Stay authentic, stay compassionate, stay rebellious. Peace.